I was on a roll when I entered the system of entertainment, theater, television, and film. In my first New York audition for a professional play, I landed the lead role. From that play, I got my first agent. From that agent, I got an on-screen audition. It was a soap opera. It wasn't Third Watch. It was a soap opera on a major network. I scored that role too. I felt like Mike Tyson when he first came on the scene, knocking out opponents in the first round. With this soap opera gig, I was already promised to make 6 figures, more money than I had ever seen. I was feeling myself. But once I got the first script, and with soap operas, you very often get the script the night before and you shoot the whole episode in one day with little to no time to prepare. Once I saw the role I was playing, I found myself conflicted. The role wasn't necessarily stereotypical. A young man in his formative years with a violent streak pulled into the allure of gang involvement. That's somebody's real story. Never judge the characters you play. That's what we were always taught. That's the first rule of acting. And any role play, honestly, can be empowering. But I was conflicted because this role seemed to be wrapped up in assumptions about us as Black folk. The writing failed to search for specificity. Plus, there was barely a glimpse of positivity or talent in the character, barely a glimpse of hope. I would have to make something out of nothing. I was conflicted. Howard had instilled in me a certain amount of pride, and for my taste, this role didn't live up to those standards. It was just my luck that after filming the first 2 episodes, execs of the show called me into their offices and told me how happy they were with my performance. They wanted me to be around for a long time. They said, if there was anything that I needed, just let them know. That was my opening. I decided to ask them some simple questions about the background of my character, questions that I felt were pertinent to the plot. Question number 1, where's my father? The exec answered, well, he left when you were younger. Of course. Okay. Question number 2. In this script, it alluded to my mother not being equipped to operate as a good parent. So why exactly would my little brother and I have to go into foster care? Matter of factly, he answered, well, of course, she's on heroin. That could be real, I guess. But I didn't want to assume that's what it was. If we're around here assuming that the Black characters in the show are criminals, on drugs and deadbeat parents, then that would probably be stereotypical, wouldn't it? That word stereotypical lingered. One of the execs pulled out my resume and began studying it. The other exec wore a smile, trying to live up to what they had promised me only a few moments before. If there's anything you need, just let us know. She said, as you have seen, things move really fast around here. But we are more than happy to connect you with the writers if you have suggestions. Yeah, I said, that would be great. I said, because I'm just trying to do my homework on this. I didn't know if you guys had decided on all the facts, but maybe there's some things we could come up with, some talent or gift that we can build. Maybe he's really good at math or something. He has to be active. I'm doing my best not to play this character like a victim. So you went to Howard University, huh? The exec holding my resume interrupted, peeking over the pages. Yes, I said proudly. He slid my resume back in his desk and said, thank you for your concerns. We'll be watching you. I left the office. I shot the episode I had come in to shoot on that day. Probably the best one I did out of the 3 because I got what was bothering me off my chest. I was let go from that job on the next day. Phone call from my agent. They decided to go another way. The questions that I asked set the producers on guard and perhaps paved the way for a less stereotypical portrayal for the Black actor that stepped into the role after me. As the scripture says, I planted the seed and Apollos watered it. But God kept growing. God kept it growing. Yet and still, when you invest in a seed, watching it grow without you, that is a bitter pill to swallow. A bitter pill. Anybody that's ever been fired knows what I'm talking about. Even if you really don't want the job, when they let you go, it's like any breakup. You act like you don't care. I didn't need that damn job anyway. I didn't need them. But when you have those moments alone, you start to wonder if there was a better way to handle it. And if you could have handled it better, maybe you could help your family. And then before you know it, you're broke. And you find yourself scraping together change just so you can ride the subway so that you can get the next job. And maybe if you could book something else, that would eclipse the feeling of doubt that's building. But it seems like you can't pay them to hire you now. My agents at the time told me it might be a while before I got a job acting on screen again. Well, that was fine because I never wanted to act in the first place. And I definitely didn't want to be caught dead going after a fake Hollywood pipe dream. I'm more of a writer-director anyway, so forget their stories. I can tell my own stories. As conflicted as I was before I lost the job, as adamant as I was about the need to speak truth to power, I found myself even more conflicted afterwards. Sometimes you need to get knocked down before you can really figure out what your fight is and how you need to fight it. At some point, my mind reverted back to my experiences here, to the professors that challenged me and struggled against me. Finally, I thought of Ali in the middle of the yard, in his elder years, drawing from his victories and his losses. At that moment, I realized something new about the greatness of Ali and how he carried his crown. I realized that he was transferring something to me on that day. He was transferring the spirit of the fighter to me. Sometimes you need to feel the pain and sting of defeat to activate the real passion and purpose that God predestined inside of you.
Just heard from Chadwick Boseman as he was speaking to the graduating class at Howard. There's one main thing that I took away from that whole speech, and that's know thyself. The reason why I say that is because when Chadwick Boseman was speaking on his career in his early days, he was talking about a time period in his life where he was not the Chadwick Boseman that we know. Yeah, I mean, or knew. You feel me? This is Rest with God. You know what I mean? Much respect to Chadwick Boseman and his craft and everything that he left on the table for us to really feed off of and to eat and to learn from, because that's why I'm able to give this talk right now about him. But when he was talking, and the time period he was talking about is a time period before he made it, before he made his great success. So the fact that he was in that situation where he got handed a role when he said he was already coming off of a nice little run, so he was feeling good about himself, and then he gets hit with this roadblock, right? Like, oh, wait a minute, what's this? Why is this going on? Why is this? Why is that? So the fact that he got hit with that, and it intrigued him enough to start asking these questions with the writers, with the producers, while they're sitting at the table. Like, well, why is his mother not here? Why is this like this? And then they start giving him these vague answers that are not consistent with what he knows to be true about the culture. This proves and shows that not only does he know himself, but he knows himself via or through knowing who he is culturally. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, yeah, we get caught up in, like, as I'm saying, know thyself, know thyself. It's kind of hard to know yourself if you don't truly understand where you come from, for real. You know what I mean? So that's a big thing, is to study yourself. Now, as far as to study your culture, now, as far as we go, you know, we all know that we have our own stumbling blocks and roadblocks within that, because there's so much confusion, so much deception so much misinformation about where the hell we come from. But that can also be used as a benefit, because that means we have endless things to study. Like, just study black people, study the culture, study the roots, study it all, and see what we're made of. You know what I mean? So because Chadwick Boseman had that education of himself, of his culture, he went through a university like Howard, a college like Howard, right? This is why he was able to get those trigger alerts when he started reading the script. You feel me? This is why, because he knew who he was. So he wasn't like walking blind into something. Someone who doesn't know who they are, that script may have meant nothing to them. Like, this is my job, I'm an actor, this is what I do, bang. But because Chadwick had a strong sense of who he was, he couldn't, like, whoa, what is this? This is not resonating at all with who we are, you feel me? So he sits down at the table, he starts asking these questions. Now, Chadwick Boseman didn't have to quit. He didn't have to throw the script in their face. I'm not doing it. I won't do it. He didn't have to do any of that, right? They, through the conversation, decided we're going to go another way. Now, why did this happen? And why some people would say, well, he should have threw the script in their face. He should have tore it up right in their face, threw it at them, and stormed out, slammed the door, and the paint should have fell off the wall when that shit happened, right? But the reason why he didn't have to do that, and the reason why it's not always necessary to do that, and there's some cases where it is necessary. There's some cases where you're going to have to do that type of shit. But the reason why that wasn't necessary, and he's still the realest, even though he handled it in a way where he didn't even quit the role. Like, they let him go. So that could even be something that plays on the ego. Like, damn, I should have quit. I should have quit them before they quit me. Right? But no, the universe made it to where he didn't have to do all that. Because it resonated with him in a way for him to speak up, he basically spiritually activated a different course to take place. So even though he didn't scream, he didn't go through the hooping and the hollering at the producers, spiritually he did. Spiritually, he went through that. And the way it came out was the way he approached it. And also with him being young in the career, being wet behind the ears, as they say, not really, still trying to learn the environment, what to do, how to move within the environment. I believe that played a big role on how he reacted to the situation as well. So with that being said, because spiritually he was on point, spiritually Chadwick Boseman was solid as a rock, you feel me? So because of that, the universe was like, all right, it's go time. Now we're going to activate something else. Fuck that role. That was some petty role stuff anyway. We're going to give him now the big shit. We see that he's ready to step into his path. He's ready to walk his path now. We see he has shown us. He has passed the spiritual test, right? So he does that. They end up bringing up Howard University. At the time, they probably never even noticed that he went to Howard University. It was probably just something that was on the resume. But once he started speaking, asking these questions, then they looked at it, then they saw Howard, then they could connect the dots. Like, oh, this is someone who knows who they are. We can't get away with just throwing anything on here. Now, he's a thespian. Chadwick Boseman is. So, at the end of the day, he's going to want to play the role in the best way he could, as he expressed. But there has to be some context behind it for him to do so. I can't just play a role about a boy who's a bandit. Now he's out doing all types of wild shit, and I don't know why. Especially, now this may be able to fly for someone who is not of the culture, because if you view us in that type of stereotypical way, it just makes sense. Like, yeah, that makes sense. That's what happens. Black man, 25, in the streets, no mother. Perfect. It's a perfect story. Makes sense. But to a black man who's 25, who went through college, who went through college with thousands upon thousands of other people, who knows black professors who studied the best and the most elite of other black people who made it through that college, and other people who came out of other colleges, who black people who didn't go to college but still made billions and millions and made their dreams come true. That's not a reality to someone like that, right? So now I need context. Wait a minute, why is this like this? Why? So, and if you can't answer that, then there's there's going to be conflict right there. So that's why they said, okay, he went to Howard, he knows too much. We're going to go a different way. We're going to get someone a little bit more wet behind the ears than you are. You're just new to the scene of this. You're not necessarily new you're not wet behind the ears in life. You know who you are. So that's why they chose a different way with him. But anyway, I digress. But anyway, let's get back to the main point. The main point is, yeah, so with him doing that, with him being able to step into his power by knowing himself, it put him on his path to where he was able to play Jackie Robinson, James Brown, and then the biggest role to date that he did, Rest with God, the Black Panther as T'Challa. So yeah, all of these things led him up to that pinnacle moment, and that's why it's important to know thyself, to dig into your culture, to know yourself culturally, so you can make these decisions, because as you walk into yourself, into your path, that's what really will align you with your purpose and get you on track. If you never know what decisions to make, and this is an inner feeling, he knew that because it didn't feel right to him. It wasn't because, oh no, I'm just going to say this because it don't feel good, or because this ain't right. No, that wasn't really, there's some who would have did that. But no, to him, he couldn't do it. Like, this, the lines hurt. I could tell by how you spoke about it. So you got to know thyself. That's this one, y'all. Chadwick Boseman just told y'all. You got to know thyself. Jen Ether broke down the ism on why you got to know thyself. It will lead you on your direct path. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Jen Ether's Masterclass, episode 2, baby. We're going to keep on going. I like it. I'm feeling myself. I'm feeling this. I am the shit.